Welcome everyone. My name is Ann Davis. I'm a professor in the Department of Pediatrics at KU Medical Center. And I, along with Dr. Bridget Jones, lead SPECTRE, which is the Kansas branch of the Idea States Pediatric Clinical Trials Network, which is funded by the National Institutes of Health. And so we are delighted that we've been able to use part of our funds to sponsor today's talk. My job is to introduce our speakers, so I will do that. We are delighted to have Dr. Kim Richter and Dr. Tanisha Sherman here today to speak to us about mentoring and sponsoring women in academic medicine. Dr. Richter conducts federally funded research on tobacco treatment in rural primary care hospitals and pursues research and advocacy to expand access to high quality treatment among the medically underserved. She directs You Can Quit at KU Med, a bedside tobacco treatment service for hospital inpatients, which has treated over 20,000 inpatients since 2006. She's an active research mentor, serving as primary or secondary mentor on 6 NIH-funded K Awards and postdoc positions, guiding junior faculty, postdocs, and students to conduct and publish high-quality research, and providing career development and research support to numerous students and faculty in Brazil. She's an active member of the Society for Research on Nicotine and Tobacco and the Association for the Treatment of Tobacco Use and Dependence, and is former president of the Kansas Public Health Association and the U.S. Association for Medical and Research on Substance Abuse. Dr. Sherman is a behavioral scientist focusing on smoking cessation research. She's an associate professor in population health at KU Medical Center. Her work has strong emphasis on health disparities related to tobacco use and associated health outcomes. Her research is currently centered on smoking cessation for pregnant and postpartum women. She was awarded a 5-year NIH K01 Mentored Scientist Development Award to develop and test a text message intervention for pregnant and postpartum women who smoke. Dr. Richter is her primary mentor on the K Award and has been her primary faculty member for the past 9 years. So welcome to you both, and I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Sherman.
Well, thank you. So Kim, I can advance our slides.
That'd be great.
Okay. And so I just wanted to go over our agenda briefly, just to let you know what to expect. So first of all, we're going to talk about mentoring generally and offer some advice that has been found helpful. And then we'll share our personal experiences, both as mentors and mentees, and then open it up for discussion to the entire group.
So a lot of our tips come from, at least early on in the talk, come from work done by Nancy Spector and Megan Ayler and many others on mentoring and basically creating tools to support mentoring. And it's summarized in this really nice publication. And then in the supplement to this publication are a number of the tables and tools that we'll present early on in this talk.
So why pursue mentoring relationships? Why mentor or be mentored? So in terms of mentee benefits, there's just a great opportunity for personal growth and development. Having an experienced mentor helps you to learn from other people's experience, from your mentor's experience, and not have to learn everything yourself through trial and error. And also really helps you to leverage their networks. So through Kim, for example, as one of my mentors, my network, both within the institution and nationally, has been expanded. She's introduced me to collaborators through her projects, introduced me at conferences and things like that, enhance productivity. Working with a mentor will help you create productive strategies, but also give you access to data. I was able to start at KUMC as a research instructor and being able to publish with Kim on her data, both as a co-author and first author from her trial that was ending. And if I was only waiting on my own projects, which were smaller pilot projects, I wouldn't have had access to those publications. Career and advancement and promotion. Kim and other mentors have really helped me think about my career strategically and get ready for promotion. And then career satisfaction, just having mentors and collaborators from a variety of perspectives, both, people who are ahead of me and people who are my peers, just helps me to feel happier with my career and happier at the institution.
Yeah, and mentor benefits really parallel those, but yeah, so like in terms of personal growth and development, I think when you teach something, you really learn it. And as a mentor, you're sort of helping people, through the steps of their career. And so you might have done it one way, but it forces you to reflect on that and take lessons away from it, and also look around to see what other paths there might be. Developing a personal network. I'm not a huge networker, but I can network for other people. So, I'm not so good at rubbing shoulders with people at a conference. I have my people that I like, but if I see somebody who it's important for a mentee to know, Tanisha to know, or other people that I work with to know, then I'm very happy to go up and say hi and reintroduce myself if it's necessary, and introduce a mentee. So it does actually strengthen my own network to have, mentees. And it totally enhanced my productivity. I mean, Tanisha came on board, and often when you have a large project, as it's ending, is when you get all the data, and then you don't have any protected time to do anything with it. And so, Tanisha came right on board and headed up some really nice publications on this data that our team had generated. So I think very often, almost all the mentees that I work with have worked with me on things. I haven't mentored many people who are in a totally separate field, although that's happened as well. In terms of promotion, of course, especially when you're being promoted to full professor, people really do look at whether you're turning around and helping people climb the ladder as well. So that's really important. And, I can't say how much it enhances career satisfaction for me. Having people that, where I got help as a mentee, and where I can turn around and help them. It makes me feel like I've achieved something, that I've learned something along the way. And during the pandemic, we met as mentees over lunch, every other week in Kansas City, and it helped me keep ties to my work even. So it was really invaluable. So mentor roles and actions, Eiler et al., that's from the publication that I'd shown earlier, breaks it out into 5 C's. The mentor role in career development, involves a number of different steps: introducing mentee to other people, helping them clarify their goals, identifying and suggesting opportunities, etc. Championing and sponsoring people, and that goes beyond just connecting them. It goes to really seeking out opportunities for people and connecting them with those opportunities, sharing credit with them, and helping mentees celebrate their successes. Being a coach, where you're not doing stuff yourself, but you're helping other people get where they want to go. And that has to do more with the motivational side of things, and helping people believe that they belong here, and that they have something to offer, something valuable to offer. And being a confidant, being able to listen to people, sometimes around personal stuff, most often around work-related things, and keeping your lips zipped, and helping them figure out how to handle situations without trying to intervene, but intervening if necessary. And then as a counselor, really listening, helping people find their own solution, and then providing advice where it's wanted or welcome. I think, it's a great mnemonic.
So in terms of just ways to be successful as a mentee, one of the important things is to really think about how your mentor can be helpful to you. Like what is it that you want from your mentor? And so really driving that relationship and communicating about what your needs are to your mentor, and define your goals, like having an idea of your own career goals and where you'd like to get to. It's easier to have somebody help you get someplace where you kind of have some idea of the destination. Of course, things don't always work out exactly as we plan, but having that understanding of the direction that you want to go as a faculty member, as a researcher with your career, invest enough time in the relationship, and making sure that you set aside time for a meeting with your mentor and keeping that in mind. And Kim and I have met regularly. We often schedule either weekly or biweekly or regular meetings. And it's often very helpful to have an agenda. So having a list of questions or things that you'd like to discuss in the meeting, I think it helps you to make sure that you're getting what you need, but also helps your mentor to know that you're prepared and that you're using their time wisely as well. Being open to other viewpoints, learning skills or suggestions, and really when you're getting mentored, you're taking in another person's perspective. And so even if sometimes even if you disagree, just understanding your mentor's perspective. And then like one of the things Kim and I talked about in preparation for this talk was, sometimes, I have had differences of opinion with maybe other mentors on like an approach to a scientific question. And what that means is that when I write a grant or write a paper, then I have to think critically and address the questions or concerns that mentor had, even if I don't solve the problem within the same way. But that person's feedback was valuable because it really addresses a critical question. Asking your mentor for feedback periodically, like just getting their perspective on how you're doing in terms of your career progression, your productivity, that can be really eye-opening and helpful to see where you can improve. And so that is important to reflect on that feedback for question, point 7. So reflecting that feedback, taking that in, I think that's one of the things that was really helpful for me is talking with Kim about where I was in terms of heading towards promotion and regularly checking in on that. And taking advantage of what your mentors have to offer, if it fits within your career goals. And then at times, maybe your mentor might offer you an opportunity that doesn't fit with your career goals. And then just being open about that and having that discussion as well, because you're going to be invested in things that really help with your career goal, and your mentor wants you to succeed also. Even introverts need networks, and I am an introvert, but, it really helps to have Kim connect me with people. And I really love working with other people as well. And so expanding my network by collaborating on a paper has been helpful because you form relationships over that. And then tip 10 is just showing appreciation. I think, letting your mentor know that they are valued, that you appreciate what they're doing, that you're benefiting, also, I think helps to motivate them to keep investing in the relationship as well.
Great. So in terms of mentoring models, this is a really nice paper that Tanisha found for this talk. There's the sort of traditional dyadic model that, Tanisha and I are talking about now. Me, Kim, Tanisha, mentee, and how great that is. But there are also multi-mentoring models where, you have maybe one main mentor or one mentor for one part of your path. But then you have other mentors for other things, and not just focused on a research question, but focused on your whole career path. So you can benefit from different people's perspectives on, one particular research project or where your career should be going. You can choose mentors for your research, et cetera, but also you may have other needs. You may have some other interests you'd like to explore, et cetera. So you can be purposeful about that. And, I think filling gaps in the dyad is a good one. And I think sometimes, we hadn't talked about this, Tanisha, but sometimes I'm just like so protective of people that I don't want them to, work too hard or fail or something like that. And there are other mentors I know in Tanisha's life and with other mentees of mine, where there are people that push them harder or that give them harsh feedback. And sometimes that's great, so you don't want a mentor that coddles you too much. And maybe, you need somebody who who can give you harsher feedback or more broader vistas. So it's rare that a dyad sort of does it all for people. And then there's peer mentoring. And, I'd really say that when I came to KU Med in population health, it had a different name then, we were all pretty young. And so we kind of held hands and stuck together. And we had lunches where we would just go and just set goals, and then the next time sort of be accountable for those goals. And we really did a lot of peer mentoring, and we collaborated on research and other things, but we really were helping lift each other up. And that was incredibly effective for our department. And now I think it's hard for all of us to believe that we're all of us basically professors now. We still feel like kids. Okay, well, I can just introduce this book, shall I, Tanisha? So I just I've sort of mentored kind of by the seat of my pants and not followed a lot of guides or anything. So I thought, this is a great opportunity to prepare for this talk. So I found a couple different books, and I especially loved this one because it's wonderful essays from different people's perspective on mentoring. Most of folks, I think, had the mentee's perspective, but some of them are more senior now and sort of wrote down their lessons learned for others. And so a number of the other slides that we'll have in the talk are kind of inspired by some of the points from essays from this book.
So here we want to just share our own experiences. So Kim and I will both talk about how we experience mentorship and how we mentor other people. And then we'll answer a few of these questions. But I also wanted to ask members of the audience if you could just maybe answer a few of these questions in the chat. And I'm not sure if there are admins on the call who could help us with just, picking out some of those.
I'd be happy to.
Great, thank you. So Kim, would you like to start talking about like your experience getting mentored and mentoring?
Yeah. So I told Tanisha, it's just a tiny story, but when I was first applying for graduate school, I had been teaching preschool because I had an undergraduate degree in philosophy, and what do you do with that? So I was interviewing with a potential advisor, and I just sort of said, do you think I'm like graduate student material? Because I just didn't know what it took or anything. And, he reassured me and thought that was fine. And it was just funny that I had to ask for that, but I really didn't know if I belonged or not.
So I think for me, with that question of belonging, there was also that pivotal moment for me when one of my dissertation advisor looked at me. We work on a separate paper, and he looked at me and he said, you can really do this. You could really be a faculty member. And but then other ways that Kim and other mentors helped me to feel like I belong in academia. It just include that personal connection, like sometimes just meeting over lunch. Like it isn't always like in the little tiny boxes of our offices, meeting over lunch, feeling connected personally, and also getting that feedback of what I'm doing well and what I'm contributing to the department or to a project or things like that. So helping me to see, okay, this is where I fit and this is where I'm adding value.
Yeah, and I think that point that Tanisha made, and I can't remember whether it's made later or not, but the idea that a mentor, spends time with a mentee, outside of meetings in the office, it's just something I've really valued and I make time for, and I like to eat a lot. So very often we have meetings over breakfast or lunch or both, or, so it's helped me connect at a deeper level and be able to provide better mentoring, I think. And it's just something that's really important to me as a mentor. And I know not everybody has a lot of time to carve out for mentoring, but for me, it's been crucial.
I can start with the second question. So I'll talk about mentoring networks inside and outside the institution. And so I have, the mentoring relationship I have with Kim, but that was something that was formalized as I entered the department. And I've also had formal mentoring relationships as part of a K Award and other programs with Nikki Nolan, Ed Allerbeck. So Those are within my department. And I've also developed some more informal mentoring relationships with a couple of other colleagues in the department. But I have also external mentors. So Ross Brownson at WashU and Kath Pollock at UNC, or actually Duke, sorry. Those are external mentors who really provided me with a lot of content expertise. So Ross Brownson is a leader in implementation science. And so I participated in a formal mentoring program with him as I was learning about implementation science. And Kath Pollock has a lot of expertise in research with pregnant smokers. And so, that really helps both in terms of content, but also process, because people write papers differently and approach grant writing differently. And so it's just really interesting to have like different models of how to do that. And so then I've been able to adapt pieces that worked for me rather than just relying on only the models that we use here.
And Dr. Sherman, you just got a chat from Dr. Ramaswamy. I don't know if she wants to unmute and tell this nice story that she put in the chat.
I mean, it's just speaking about networks inside and outside the institution. I'm sure, Kim, you probably had no idea what an impact that would have had on my career. I was like 21 years old. And it was huge. You leveraged and you sponsored, and it turned out to be like really critical. So sometimes you just never know. Maybe
you never know. Yeah, that was fun too, because I could keep up with Mega on how she was doing when she was way far away in New York City. That was great. And then
guess what? I came back.
Yes, that was so nice.
Kim and Juan were both my professors and were, really great when I came back and have continued to mentor me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just to follow up on that, I just feel like, mentoring has got to be open-handed, that, you just feel you're just sort of passing things on. And if you, there's a song by Sting, if you love someone, let's set them free. And so I think, to me, of course, there are things that the mentor gets out of a relationship, but to me, it's just helping people take flight, and fortunately Mega came back, and, but I really feel like if you mentor with a very in a very open-handed way, it just can't go wrong. Things don't always have to circle back to benefiting you. And but to get to the network issue, my networks inside, we basically did a lot of peer mentoring in our department, and still I collaborate with folks to this day. And then outside the institution, I was married to a faculty member on the Lawrence campus, and he was basically my at-home mentor for everything. And he connected me with people in Lawrence, and so I was able to consult with somebody who had applied for a large center grant over there, who was a friend of his, and I could ask her about how she went about applying for it, et cetera. So not everybody gets to marry a wonderful mentor, but I was fortunate enough to have that.
And Kim, you just got a comment in here from Dr. Bakula. Dana, I don't know if you want to unmute and make your point.
Yeah.
Sure. I will just say, I think having local mentors like Ann Davis is my primary mentor, and she is wonderful, that really believe in my research ideas and trajectory and really push me and have faith in my trajectory, but also having national mentors who maybe have really aligned interests or goals that we can really collaborate from that really close research ideas, moving the needle forward perspective. Having that balance has been really helpful and critical.
So I think for me, one of the things that I learned about through talking with colleagues was just the idea that there are different models of, or different benefits of certain kinds of funding. And so initially coming in as on the research track, where the expectation was going to eventually be, 100% funding through research grants. I had one perspective, but then, I have been on the K Award track, but then through talking with colleagues like Megan and other people, just realizing the value of different models of funding. And so there are, folks who've been successful getting contracts. There have been folks who've been successful getting foundation grants, and there are folks who've been successful going more DR21 to R01 route. And so, that was just eye-opening to learn more about what the value is of different kinds of funding within our institutions, like what is valued, but also that there are more than one ways to meet that.
Yeah, I think sometimes the unwritten institutional criteria for success really are myths or aren't, unwritten in stone. For example, in many departments, folks will say, well, you're not going to get tenure unless you have an R01, this big research grant from NIH. And yet, and it's an unwritten thing, right? But it's actually not true. Or because you can see that other people have met with success in other ways. And of course, you have to know what the expectations are in your department and what you got to do to get support. But we have had people in our department who haven't gotten that whopping NIH grant, and they have gotten tenure and they have contributed in a huge way. And I actually didn't have that when I got tenure. So I think sometimes those unwritten criteria aren't real, or there are other ways to find a path to where you want to go. And you've sort of got to know, it helps to get different people's perspectives on these things. And sometimes it's just people wanting you to do things their way. So they'll sort of imply these things. And so I think, you just have to, you have to pay attention to these things, but also seek other perspectives on, what's really critical, or are there other ways to skin this cat, whatever.
I think maybe Kim and I'll just go for one more, and then, feel free to answer any of the other ones that really stand out to you. But, what kinds of support have you gotten from women or other people of color, who are not your formal mentors? I think I benefit a lot from just lots of like hallway conversations or coffee, or that's, Megan, I've had those with other people. And sometimes we've shared examples of our grants. We've shared tips of things that we've learned along the way, things that, sometimes just sharing the things that didn't work out, or like where we made a mistake on a grant application or a publication or things like that. Other people have read grants, even grants that they're not on. They've taken a look maybe at the specific aims page or another part of the grant, and really just provided a lot of advice along the way. And one of the things I've really loved about our department is that colleagues often they'll share their CVs, they'll share what their promotion and tenure packet looked like. And so being able to share those and learn from each other has just been really great. And I think getting that support really has just happened by having conversations with people, and then trusting people with maybe what you're struggling with, or even just the things that are going well.
Yeah, and I'd have to say that I have, as a mentor or as a senior faculty member who is a woman, have been approached by women for advice about situations that verged on harassment, and others that verged on preferential treatment for male faculty, et cetera. And, I haven't tried to prescribe to them what to do, but have just listened carefully and asked questions about the situation and help people arrive at a way of dealing with it through either formal or informal routes. And so the number one thing that I felt that I had to do was not talk about this with any other people in any way. I just, until that person sort of gave me permission to talk about something, I would not talk about it, even if I would have taken a different path. But, just supported them through whatever choice they made, and not, yeah, and just been a very sympathetic and curious listener.
Tanisha, you did get a comment in the chat from Mega about being a woman and a woman of color. I didn't know, Mega, if you wanted to unmute and chime in.
I mean, again, like speaking to this idea, you never know where and when mentorship is going to come from. Tanisha came into my office one day and said, "Have you read that book, Women Don't Ask?" And I was like, I'm a woman who doesn't ask. I've never asked for a raise in my life. And just had no idea, where I was with respect to other people in terms of my salary, what kind of power I could have to ask. And thanks to Tanisha, I went and I asked other women, found out how to do the digging at KU Med, and got a huge raise, and have continued, thankfully, to get huge raises since. But I didn't know. And Tanisha just, I don't know what made you pop into my office to ask if I had read the book. But again, a game changer.
I think I just want to highlight too, like, this is about, asking those questions. So I got hired on the research track, and then I got offered a tenure track position, and I hadn't negotiated anything. I still have never negotiated a raise, I'll be honest, but I did negotiate my startup package, but I didn't know how to do that. And so I actually asked a faculty member who was leaving in the institution, who had recently negotiated a package, and I learned how to do that through her. And I think that's probably what prompted me to start thinking about, well, what's available that we're not asking for? Because sometimes if you don't know that you can ask or what you should ask for, you don't. And so I think that was really critical. I do also want to highlight a point that both Anne and Mega were making about the idea that as women progress, that's where you kind of see more of the barriers. And one of the articles that we came across as we were preparing for this talk pointed out that women, once you are no longer junior faculty, sometimes mentorship drops off. And the kind of mentorship that you need is the kind of mentorship that makes you more visible at that point. And so I think that's critical for all of us to be thinking about, how can we continue to get mentored, and how can we continue to mentor other people even as they become more senior?
Yeah.
That's a great point, Tanisha. And you've got some great comments in here. Dr. Helena LaRoche, did you want to say anything, Helena?
Oh, I was just saying that really not being afraid to just take those opportunities to meet someone you've always wanted to meet. Like when they come to give a talk and they say, "Does anybody want to meet with this person?" I'm forever signing up. I still do it. And it's been amazing how you can meet people and get opportunities from these chance meetings. So
Thanks, Helena. And then Juliana, it looks like you had a comment on number 6.
Hi, yes. Yeah, I comment about being, and I think it could be put together with 6 and 7. Is scrutinized or policed for working under a microscope. I think as being a woman in academia and being international, coming from another country can create a lack of trust for some of the peers if you really know what you're doing, or ask, extra information, or putting other people to kind of watch to see if you're doing the work or not. It's not everyone, but it's something at least I have experienced throughout my time as doing research here in the US.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then Dr. Melissa Miller, you've got a comment in here.
Hi.
Hi.
Yes, I don't know what everybody on this call, what their research focus is, but you're like me and you have a research focus that is largely studied by women. Then I feel like that's another layer of challenge and barriers to figuring out how to conduct the research and advance, what we know about these topics. And so that's specifically, like, I encounter like system level barriers to, what is really evidence-based practice, but because it has to do with adolescent sexual health, I just, the number of barriers, system level barriers that I encounter with every project are really different than what men experience, or what people who research different topics that aren't considered, sensitive, or whatever term. So it's been really helpful for me to have a national network of people doing the same work, so that I can learn from what has worked for them at their institution. But it would really be great if we wouldn't have to. I don't know. There's an incredible amount of energy that I spend trying to address, concerns about emergency contraception, for example, or, things that aren't evidence-based within our own institution, the misunderstanding. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there as a frustration. And also, if anybody has any great ideas to move the needle forward for all the researchers in this, in these areas that are considered, I don't know, taboo somehow.
Thank you. That's a great point. Yeah, appreciate you chiming in.
I mean, I definitely don't have a solution, but I feel like, just even, I think reaching out, if anybody is in a similar area, I think maybe reaching out to Melissa and at least having like a core set of people who can talk about these issues and maybe, leverage each other's connections, like within our institutions to make change or to make things easier. I feel like when the more of us get together, we can help each other to navigate these situations better than just one person against the system.
But really, is a system level barrier, a lot of those things, and we're asking the individual to navigate the system instead of whoever the person in power is, which to me, I'm not that, I'm a researcher and a pediatrician trying to make small changes. And really it's, within, like, consider our CTSI, like, what can we do at a system level to help this research occur without all these barriers, instead of every time having to reinvent the wheel. That's my personal experience. I'd love to, I don't know if anybody's, and I agree. I saw Mega's note about the money. And once I got NIH funding, everybody was like, oh, maybe evidence-based sexual health care is a good idea. And I was like, well, maybe it is. That's why there's a policy about it.
Yeah, unfortunately, money does talk.
So when I was seeking out mentorship, because as Tanisha said, it drops off for people at my level. One of the women I spoke with said, I looked around, and if it wasn't me, who was it going to be? So Melissa, think about becoming the person in power at your place or another place, because chances are there's not someone who's going to do the work as well as you can. I have heard this from so many senior women. I heard it from a university president yesterday. I look at these people and I know I could do a better job than they can. And that's what, inspires me to serve, is what she said. So think about your future and, the kinds of positions of power that you can have to really be the change. But yeah, money talks. I mean, I think it's really hard to not listen to someone with tons of federal funding, short of getting a position of power.
I was at a small retreat that had a number of current and ex-chancellors at it, including Bernadette Gray-Little, which was lovely to see her again. And my husband had been chair of his department twice. And I said, after seeing what he went through, there was no way I was ever going to do that. And they said, being a department chair is the hardest job in the university. So I didn't have that perspective. And some people get to upper administration through being a chair, but you don't have to. But I never realized that it was that kind of hump, that once you get over that, everything else is basically easier. I can't believe being a chancellor is easier, but maybe that was from their mouths. So, I would always look to the chair and think, well, if that's a path to upper administration, there's no way I'm ever going to do that. But, It gets easier after that, I think. At least they said. So consider it. So we could move on and leave a little more time for talking at the end. So mentors of women and people of color. So it's really important to understand the forces that are affecting the mentee. And I love the book that we highlighted for that reason. And also just talking with people and getting to know them at a personal level and earning their trust means that you get to hear a little bit more about the barriers that they're facing. So I think that it's just really important so that you just don't sort of recommend something and not know what barriers might be involved in getting there. And also somebody mentioned earlier in the chat, mentioned in the chat and also in person, how important it is to have someone that believes in you. And in that way, you know, I just feel like very maternal in this way that that, you know, I can sort of see how wonderful this idea that this person has and how their particular perspective has opened their eyes to this new important area of research. And it's not something even I would have thought of. And it creates a sense of wonder and appreciation and just helping people see that the importance of their ideas and their particular perspective is super important. And it's really important to help mentees schedule their time, prioritize what they're doing, and also say no to opportunities that might not be real opportunities, might be the chair trying to get something off his or her shoulders, you know, and unload something. Help them evaluate the opportunities and choose something that really does create synergy in their career. Sponsoring mentees and worthwhile opportunities. I don't know how worthwhile it was, but Tanisha and Babalola and I collaborated on a Cochrane review. And I had sort of dredged up the opportunity by spilling tea over someone who controlled this particular area of Cochrane reviews. And so then she said, yeah, you know, you can do it. And I said, well, let's three of us do it together. And Babalola is a natural lead because it's his area of research. And you know, and it's been cited a lot and it created credibility. So I hope it was a good opportunity. It was. That was a good one. And also in terms of presenting different places and getting leadership training, et cetera. And encouraging a network of mentors. We can't be jealous mentors. We can't expect to be the sole source of support for a person. And I think when Tanisha was negotiating her package for going on tenure track, she asked me and I was like, well, I don't know. I just got $5,000. I did a crappy job of this. So she sought help elsewhere. And also, I think, you know, especially with women and mentees of color, it's a good idea if you've got the trust in your relationship to ask directly about whether people are feeling isolated and how they're doing in terms of, you know, their mental health, because people are walking a different path and you just don't know what they're facing. And these very minor kind of slights, microaggressions, differential treatment can add up. And you know, I, as a white woman with a husband who was an incredible mentor, couldn't know what that feels like. So I've never asked Tanisha this directly. Maybe I will, or I will. But my other mentees, you know, I check in with how they're doing, but I don't ask specifically about some of these things that we know affect mentees.
You know, one of the things, as Kim was alluding to, is realizing that not everybody or all of your mentors may not understand, you know, what the forces are that are affecting you. And so, like, for instance, like, I've become more transparent with a question of, like, what should I ask for? Or, you know, what resources are available, because I don't have a lot of academics in my personal network. I mean, I do have been forming professional relationships, but my parents, neither of them had college degrees. You know, I have an older sister who I respect, but she's in IT. And so, you know, one of the questions I have gotten asked is when I am excited about publications, like, did you get paid for that? And so, you know, like, what's the currency of getting published? You know what I mean? And so what we value isn't always valued in my personal networks. Believing in yourself. I had a mentor in graduate school, you know, tell me about imposter syndrome. And that's just really helped, because when I don't feel like I can do something, I just think, okay, you know what? Who does? And so just do it anyways. And, you know, enlisting your mentor to help you. So, you know, if I get asked to do something, especially, you know, by somebody important, like your department chair or something, I might say, you know, I'll talk with Kim about that. And, you know, or even just get help in pushing back and figuring out, okay, is this going to help me get to where I need to be to, you know, to get promotion in tenure, stay in the department, be able to continue to contribute, or is it going to derail me? And so just asking and talking about, okay, what are these commitments and do they fit in? And also really thinking about thriving and what that means for you to thrive. So, you know, yes, we want to be successful and meet criteria, but what does it mean for you as a person to be happy with your career and where it's going? And I think that is what it means to thrive. And then finding mentors and sponsors who value your work. I have mentors that I like as people and I feel valued by. And so when I'm interacting with them, it's actually usually an uplifting or beneficial, even when the feedback is critical, because I know that it's to push me forward. Okay, and then Kim and I talked about the phrasing of this. So look out for number one. Doesn't feel natural for me, but really, like, I am the only person who can drive my career forward. That's not Kim's responsibility. That's not anybody else's responsibility but my own. And so then just being really intentional and thinking about where it is that you're going, what your capacity is, and what really, you know, what work or what part of your work really brings you joy. You know, what do you enjoy doing? And nobody else can really identify that for you. That's something that you have to understand for yourself and use that to, you know, and how you interact with your mentor and being open about that, I think, can really help.
Yeah. And what inspired me to use that language is when I was in grad school, close to finishing up my PhD, my husband decided to do a sabbatical. And so I thought, well, I'll just apply for Fulbright wherever he's going. And then we can, you know, both be gainfully employed. Wouldn't that be cool? And so then I went to talk to my mentor about it. And, you know, I expected him to be enthusiastic, but he was like, yeah, I don't think that a Fulbright would really be in your best career interests at this point. And I was blown away. I was thinking, how could anybody say something like that? Of course, a Fulbright is going to help your career. And then I realized, oh, he doesn't want me to go away because I'm helping him run these projects and it will inconvenience him. So, but how he's putting it is as if he were a mentor and advising me on my career. And it just irritated me so much that it helped me remember that I can't rely on, you know, him or anybody else to look after my best interests. It is me. And I didn't need to feel sad or ashamed or betrayed or anything. It's like, it's me, it's up to me. And so it was just a really good reminder that you've just got to listen carefully to what people are telling you, and you know, you get to be the decider. Yeah.
If I had $1 for every time someone told me, oh, this will be great for your career. And really, it's like, oh, I'd really like somebody to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thank you for expanding on that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So this is a different kind of rose, right? Tanisha pointed that out because I just like these pretty roses. I found them on Pixabay or whatever. I don't know what they were. Yeah. But this quote I just love from one of the chapters in the book. And I wondered if people would mind chatting what they make of this, because Tanisha and we interpreted it differently. So what she ended her chapter was no matter how gifted a mentor, teacher, researcher you are, if you are not around, everyone loses. So what do people think that means?
I put in the chat, does it mean like maybe if you're too busy to put in the time, then you're not being helpful? I don't know.
No, yeah, yeah. To me, it meant because, you know, I've at times had one foot out the door at this job, you know, because I like, maybe I'd just be happier, you know, selling clothes in a nice store and going home and having time, you know, like what it's, and I had a good friend who sort of said, you know, my chair should want me to be happy because if I'm happy, then I'm productive and all this stuff. So it's kind of like the warning in the airplane for me when the oxygen drops and they say put the oxygen on yourself and then your child with the most promise or whatever. And the idea is that you have so much to offer, but if you can't stay in a situation or a job or in academia because you're not getting what you need, and you leave, then you lose, but the whole institution loses. So in a way, if you demand what you need of the institution, you're being altruistic because you're helping the institution in a way. That's sort of my thought on it, you know. But Tanisha, you had a slightly different take on it. What was it?
Oh, well, my take was, so sometimes I've, you know, like I've heard and read a lot about like faculty of color, especially getting a lot of demands on their time for mentoring students of color and particular service areas. But then if that gets in the way of them achieving promotion and tenure, they're not going to be around to support anybody. And so I think that, you know, that has to do with, you know, self-care and things like that, but also just your own career progress. Like if you don't meet the, you know, if you're not able to survive at the institution and thrive at the institution, then nobody's going to benefit from you being there. And we do have a number of comments in the chat. I'd like to, we could read some of them. So, you know, Alice pointed out work-life balance and self-care. You need to be available. Haley said you need to be available to share your talents. And then Emily, the relationship won't thrive if you're not available for it to thrive. And I think that's really a good point. And Juliana's, we need to be mindful and in harmony with our surroundings. Again. And Helena, sometimes mentors in positions of power have competing interests that mean you need to always take a careful view of their advice. And finally, from Amanda, it says, gifted suggests some special talent or exceptional quality, but we all have a part to play. You may not see your value, but everyone has value. I really like that. That's important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. So we're drawing closer to the end of the hour. So were there any, I don't know if you all had more slides or if we have time for a question or two. This is your last slide?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you for this excellent talk. It was very inspiring. Would anyone like to unmute and ask a question of our speakers today? I guess I can ask, I haven't read this book yet, but it's on my list now. And I know you shared a lot of points from the book in the talk today, but are there any other tidbits from the book that people should know if they're considering checking it out?
You know, I think for me, personally, sometimes I just kind of get in the grind and I'm not really thinking about my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was helpful, you know, some of sharing or reading the personal experiences can really help you to articulate what's going on and maybe even understand other people's experiences, even if you haven't experienced it yourself. And so I think that is a part of what I got from the chapters I've read.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you both. you clearly did a lot of preparation, which was great, and lots of helpful information shared. We were recording this talk, so it will be available later on the Spectre website. And then we wanted to let everyone here know that the next talk will be Thursday, August 25th at 3 p.m. Central Time. And we'll be hearing on real world experiences of underrepresented minorities in science on the topic of sponsorship and mentorship. And our host will be Dr. Bridget Jones. So if you don't have that invite and you want it, just shoot me an email, but hopefully we'll see some of you there. And thanks again to Dr. Richter and Dr. Sherman. I really appreciate it. Have a good afternoon.